Hi, everyone. It's Marcia Martin, the Heart Healer. I am so excited about today because as this shift deepens and intensifies, so many of you have been writing to me talking about prayer and more specifically about why God isn't answering your prayers. And so today we get to understand what prayer is. Some of us are first awakeners. Some of us are newly awakened. Some of us are just beginning to look around and figure out if this is something that we want to go further with. But all of us need to understand what prayer is so that we can get our prayer answered. And fingers crossed, I have someone coming on later on that will share her story about why she always gets her prayers answered. And as always, the angels have given us a challenge and a wonderful little exercise that we can do to get us out of some of the bad habits that we may have been cultivating about prayer and not even realizing. So let's go over and take a look at what my guides have shared with us about prayer. Once we fully understand our responsibility, it will be so much easier for you to get into the place where you can really get your prayers answered. So they begin. Dearest ones, before you can fully understand the question being asked, you must have a comprehensive understanding of the nature of prayer, the heart of God, and your role as receiver when you offer up a prayer. Let us begin with the nature of prayer. Prayer is not like going to the supermarket where you may choose from items stocked upon a shelf. Prayer is a relationship built upon belief and trust. First, you must believe and trust that God is capable of answering your prayer request. And then you must believe and trust that the Creator views you as worthy enough to deserve an answer, an intervention, or a solution for that which you have found to be intolerable. Once you've decided that you are indeed worthy, you have successfully opened the door to receive. But what about the heart of the Creator? Do you really matter enough to warrant God's attention and intervention? Now, I don't know about you, but I know I grew up with a family that went to church every Sunday, and my relationship with God was non-existent. God was a man, a king, on a throne in the sky, capable of striking me down if I did something that he did not approve of. There was no relationship there. There was some fear, but there was basically, I really want to know this thing that tells me things like, his son died for me because I'm so awful, or that he would easily become angry with me and he's jealous and he's going to hurt me if I don't do the right thing. I was not inspired to develop a relationship. I said prayers that I was told to say, but they didn't come from anywhere. They were merely empty words. I didn't know that my Creator, our Creator, had a heart. And they continue. To answer this, we must explain the heart of the Creator. God does not love based on merit, intelligence, good deeds, or material assets. God loves all equally. None are exempt, no matter what action they have already done or are currently participating in. The pious are not heard more clearly than the desperate, nor are the voices of the rich louder than those of the poor. No, the Creator's heart is open and loving toward all. The Creator sees all as equal and deserving, and the Creator's greatest delight is to aid those they love so they're able to live peaceful and fulfilling lives. However, the Creator has also given each one a gift, the gift of free will, the opportunity to choose that which will be of benefit as well as that which will be a burden. Therefore, although the Creator is always pouring forth love and assistance, you may not allow yourself to receive it, either because you found yourselves to be unworthy based on ego judgments, or because you've decided that you prefer the experience of living your life and solving your problems on your own without divine assistance. There is no right or wrong here. You're just exploring, and the choice is always up to you. Please get that into your heart. There is no right or wrong. There is no path that will make it impossible for God to love you, or a path that will make it possible for God to love you. You are loved right now, right where you are, in whatever way you choose to express yourself. So this brings us to the role as receiver. And again, what you receive is up to you. You will receive whatever you decide to accept as your due. If you're filled with doubt and limiting beliefs, you've already decided that it's impossible for you to receive anything from the Creator. Therefore, your prayer consists of empty words. You've provided no pathway upon which the answer may return to you. The Creator's loving answer will be greeted only by a locked door instead of an open heart, and thereby you will have limited your ability to receive. You will have set the condition to be at best, not now, and at worst, not ever. And as I said previously, I used to pray empty words, words that had been written by someone else, words that I considered pretty, words that sounded nice, but I didn't understand that I needed to find myself worthy and be willing to receive. I wanted God to do everything. So what can you do to prepare for your prayer to be answered? How can you move from the desperate place of will God answer me to the receptive place of I am open, deserving, and excited to receive the answer to my prayer? The first step is to believe that you are worthy. For many, this will be the hardest step, for you have been taught that you can never be worthy. If you feel undeserving and unlovable, you must enter your heart and confront those beliefs. Challenge why you believe that to be true and ask yourself what would happen if just for today I let go of my negative thoughts and feelings toward myself and I choose to see myself as worthy, valuable, even magnificent. For many, it will be a huge stretch, but you've got to do it. If you can suspend your judgment for even a short time, you will make room for the truth of who you are to rise to the surface. All of you are good, worthy, and valuable. None of you have been judged and found to be lacking. It's safe to let go of the false illusions you hold about yourselves and don the mantle of magnificence. And let me interject here. When you say, I am magnificent, you are not putting yourself above God. You are not saying, I'm so great and God is nothing. First of all, each one of us has a divine spark within us. We are all part of God. God is everywhere and in everything. Nothing can exist separate from or without God. So all you're really doing when you say, I am magnificent, is recognizing your authentic self. And in the authentic self is where that spark of God resides. Your job in this life is to fan that spark into a huge flame so that you can become even more. Once you have allowed more of God in by opening the door to your magnificence, you must now agree to enter into a relationship of trust with the Creator. Understand that every prayer, from the shortest to the longest, is heard and answered. There is no prayer too insignificant and none too grandiose to be answered. Stop wasting time wondering if God will answer your prayer and spend time developing your trust muscle so you can receive and understand your answer more easily. Once you understand that your prayer was answered the moment it took shape in your mind, even before you could formulate it into words, then you must stop asking and step into the place of receiving. Do not be the nag that asks over and over again for the same thing. Be the respectful supplicant who understands that your request was heard the first time and get busy doing your work. First, ask once and let it go. When your prayer comes to mind, thank God for having already answered it, and begin opening yourself up more and more completely to the Creator so you're open to receiving the answer that has already been offered to you. If you keep yourself tied to the asking place, you will never move over into the receiving place where your answer is waiting. Instead of asking if your prayer was heard and wondering if God is going to answer, trust that it has already been done, that the answer has already been delivered, and that your work now is to expand energetically so you are more fully open to God, to their love and answers. And I love to use the example of my prayer life before. First of all, never said a prayer until I was desperate or in church and reciting whatever they told me to recite, generally the Lord's Prayer. But my prayer used to be, I'm desperate, I need an answer now. And then a few minutes later, God, I'm really desperate, I want that answer now. But it never included walking away from the problem and getting to the place in my mind and my heart where I believed that I had been heard and that the answer was already there. I was so busy looking at, rehearsing, rehashing, complaining about the problem that I never got to the place, excuse me, where the answer was coming. I always say I was at First and Main Street, and the answer was at Main Street and 3rd. All I needed to do was walk 2 blocks energetically, get myself over into the place where I was supposed to be, and I would have had access to that answer. But because I was refusing to change my point of focus, the answer did not exist in the reality I was creating. If you continue to ask and ask, you become the faithless farmer who plants their seed into the ground and then goes out into their garden and digs up seeds every time they think about them to see if they're sprouting or growing roots. The only thing that farmer or you will receive, despite the effort you engaged in, is a seed no longer capable of life. Don't be the stealer of your own dreams by believing you have no value or that God has neither heard or answered your prayers. Instead, rise up, claim your magnificence, and move forward boldly, knowing you are loved. You are worthy and that any time you ask the Creator for help, your request is answered. Then immediately stop asking and believe that your prayer was answered by moving into a state of receptivity. Because every prayer is heard, every prayer is answered, but you must suspend your disbelief and enter the space of grateful receiver if you are to receive and understand the answer that has been given. Give wings to your dreams by becoming a powerful and exceedingly grateful receiver. You have so much power at your fingertips and in your heart when you open up fully to God. But it does require that you open. God is already doing everything they are going to do for you, because they answer every prayer. They cannot do more than everything. It is us. We must get into the position where we understand that free will, that gift that we have been given, allows us to choose, yes, I open to God, or no, I keep the door shut as tightly as I can. You will never be able to eliminate the God in you. That's impossible. But you can certainly shut down the channel of communication. You may not even be able to do that completely. But I personally prefer a wide open channel because I need as much instruction as possible, and I love divine assistance. I know I can get caught up in my own little forest, and all I see are trees. But God has that overarching vision, and they can not only lead me out of the forest, but show me the fastest way to my goal, or show me that that goal is going to lead me to heartache. Either way, I want God on my team, and I really want you to, if you cannot fully embrace this concept, at least open up a little and see how it feels. There's nothing to fear. God is not angry, vengeful, or jealous. That is a product of the ego designed by a group of people who were superstitious and had no way to understand some of the natural phenomena that were happening around them. Please don't get caught up in that superstitious belief of God. Understand who God is with your heart. Now let's remember, prayer is broken down into 3 parts. The nature of prayer, the heart of God, and your role as receiver. When you begin looking at prayer as a multidimensional vehicle instead of a one-way street, you can more fully understand its value. I didn't get answers when I was on a one-way street, when I was praying from desperation. And I used to really bring it on. As first, oh, I'm desperate. God, please help me. Then a few minutes later, oh, God, I really, really need the help. Please, please help me. That didn't work. Then I would start saying, God, I know I'm not worthy of receiving the answer. I've really made a mistake, or I've really screwed this up, or I've caused hurt or harm to other people. Please forgive me and answer this prayer. That didn't work. I completely understand, God. I'm not good enough to receive an answer, but what about my children, God? They're innocent. Answer the prayer for my children, or my husband, or the dog or the cat, whomever I could pull in here to try to bargain with God. There was no relationship. There was just pleading. I wasn't taking responsibility for getting the answer. I didn't do anything to move myself out of the place of desperation into the place of receiving. So remember, the nature of prayer must be based on a foundation of belief and trust. Those two were completely missing from me. People had told me you can pray and you'll get answers, but I didn't really believe it. If you don't, and so now here's our angel challenge for the day. And they're saying, or let's make it for the week, and then I want to hear from you. They're saying, why bother? If you don't believe God is capable of or willing to grant your request, they're saying, why bother? Don't waste your time. If you consider yourself unworthy of receiving an answer, why bother? So here's our why bother challenge. They are challenging you to suspend your doubt and disbelief for a week and step fully into trust. Trust and belief. Trust that God is capable of answering your prayer. Trust that you are worthy of receiving an answer. Just do it for a week. Ask sincerely from your heart, and they've come up with a beautiful little exercise for us that I'll share with you in a minute. But if you find yourself doubting, I want you to ask yourself the question, why am I bothering? If I don't expect to get an answer, if I don't believe it's possible, why in the world am I bothering and wasting my time? Stop wasting your time. Start putting that energy to good use by fully investing in belief and trust that A, God is capable, and B, you are worthy. Now let's look at the heart of the Creator. Everyone is loved equally. Even those people who are doing horrible acts are still loved. Their actions are not loved, but they are still loved. The love is never withdrawn. You cannot earn it. You can't lose it. You are always loved, and everyone is loved equally. It's not, you're my favorite child. You, Marcia, not so much. That's not the way it works. Sin, or what I call sin, is a mistake. A mistake does not cause you to separate from God. If you are, or you have made a mistake and you feel really badly, it is the shame that is separating you from God, not the fact that you made a mistake. We're here to learn. That is all this life is about. It is learning how to move closer to God. And part of that learning process is making mistakes. So if you make a mistake, do your best to correct it. Don't keep making the same mistake over and over again. But also, stop blaming yourself and allowing yourself to live in a place of shame. That cuts you off from hearing God. It's your belief that you are no longer worthy because of the shame, the blame, the whatever you may be experiencing at that time that is causing the separation. God has not pulled back. If anything, they are closer when you make a mistake because they know how much you need a hug right then. They know how much you need to understand how to do it correctly. And now, your role as a receiver. You must accept, as you believe, that you are worthy. So, you can't just say the words, oh yeah, I believe it, and then run around and put yourself in in a place of isolation or disbelief or contradictory actions. No, really get to that place, or why bother? For this week, during our Why Bother challenge, really get to the place where you say to yourself, I believe I am worthy and my prayer is being answered and nothing is going to move me from this place. This is my thought experiment. Those people who have their prayers answered on a regular basis believe they are deserving. They might not be the best people on the planet, but they believe it. So therefore, they are able to access the answer. And that's why people who are unkind or doing things that don't really seem right appear to receive more than those who are loving and giving. If the loving and giving person says, I'm giving because I'm so worthless and really nothing, and I just want God to love me, so I'm going to be kinder, more giving, and a better person, but I don't want anything in return. I just want God to love me. Well, you've just said I won't receive anything. Whereas the guy next to you, who may be deceitful and not kind or loving at all, is saying, hey, I feel worthy and deserving. God, lay it on. I want a mansion. I want a Maserati. I wanna. And they keep getting rewarded. Why? Because they believe it. They put themselves in the place where they could receive. And then we're all shocked when they receive, and pious little Mary over here doesn't. Mary's in her own way. Get out of your own way. It's not a merit score. It's up to you how much you receive. Abraham Hicks explains it beautifully. They tell us that the problem and the solution are on different vibrational scales. So you cannot solve a problem or get a prayer answered by focusing on the on the problem and asking and asking and asking. You must let go, change your focus, same as let go, of the problem and get busy getting excited about the solution. So let's say you have no idea what the answer is going to be. Doesn't matter. Just get happy. I'm so excited that an answer is here for me. Let's say a couple of days go by and you feel that you haven't received anything. That's not the time to go back and say, God, why didn't you answer me? That's the time to say, God, I know you've answered me, but I didn't get it. Could you please send the answer again and again and again and again if you have to, in different forms so that I can understand it? But come from the place that you are absolutely certain that your prayer was answered, you just weren't available to get the answer. You were out on 1st and Main when you needed to be on 3rd and Main. If you get in the habit of believing, and it's a habit that will form probably before you've really deepened your relationship to the point where it's a knowing. But if you get into the habit of saying to yourself, every prayer is going to be answered, you will then become an active receiver. You're out looking, excited, and in a pure state of expectation that it will be answered. The only thing I want you to let go of is how God will answer. You don't get to dictate. So, God, I want X and Y. Well, God sees that X and Y will absolutely destroy your life. And he delivers A and B, or they deliver A and B. Don't get so hooked on, it has to be this. If it's not this, I'm going to be so mad. Just get delighted. Get in the state of expectation that the prayer will be answered in the best way for you. And become joyful at whatever it is that you receive. What if you receive a challenge when you asked for smooth sailing? Get excited about that challenge. It shows that that is the very thing that you need in order to move forward. And I guarantee you that you will be so grateful for that challenge when you are on the other side that you will, as I have, go back to God and say, if that's the only way for me to get it, bring those challenges forward as fast as you can. Now, obviously, I went inside deep in my heart and said, girl, you need to make sure that you don't have any obstacles in the way that are going to require challenges in order for you to eliminate them. Do the work on yourself. Get into that heart, clear it out so that it can be as smooth as possible. But when the challenge comes, hallelujah, I'm growing. This is answered prayer. This is something I needed. I was stuck in a pattern that wasn't going to benefit me. This is my way to break that pattern and move in to a whole new vibrational level. Now, the angels have come up with a really cool little thing that I want to share with you. And it's called Planting a Heart Prayer Garden. Now, they gave us the reference of the farmer, and this was taken from a parable in the Bible. For those of you who are familiar with the Bible, Jesus tells us, because he was speaking at that time to many farmers, he would tell them or remind them that they never go planting their seeds in fertile soil and then digging them up. They just trust, and that was the way they were supposed to deal with their prayer life or their communication with God. And I have to tell you a funny story before I share this little technique that our angels have shared with us. We used to take lima beans when I was teaching elementary school, or like a sweet potato or something that was really good at growing roots and shoots. If it was lima beans, we would put them on a plate on a wet paper towel, and the lima beans would sit on the top. And the idea, of course, was to show children how plants could grow roots and shoots. Well, they all had the instruction. You can water your paper towel. It has to stay wet. But if you pick up the bean will die. You're going to knock off the shoots and the roots, and the bean won't be able to continue growing. They would all swear up and down, I won't pick it up. I won't pick it up. I'll just lovingly tend it. I'll just water my paper towel and watch it. And we would draw pictures of how big the plant was growing, and they would become so wrapped up in this. But always there was one or two kids that could not resist picking up the lima bean. And almost always the root would fall off, or the sprout would fall off, and their face would just crumple, because to them this was such a beautiful treasure. And they knew that once the root was gone, or the sprout, or whatever it was very unlikely that their lima bean was going to make it happen again. There just wasn't that much energy within a lima bean. It generally tended to produce just the one sprout and the one root. And so the teary eyes would come over. Look, my lima bean lost its root. Please don't pick up your lima beans. Allow your prayers to stay planted in fertile soil. The fertile soil is, I believe that I am worthy and that God will hear and answer my prayer. Remember how fragile that seed is in the beginning. Once you've got momentum, once you have a full plant, you'll be able to transplant it. I transplant plants all the time, but they have a good, solid root structure, and they are sturdy. They're not just newly sprouted. They've got some strength to them. So here's how we're going to plant a heart prayer garden. And this can be done whether your plants are in pots or you actually have a garden. So no excuses here. And if you don't have a plant, go out and buy one. You don't get to do it without a plant. So I want you to write your prayer. Write it out. Don't be shy. Write exactly what you feel that you need. At the end of your prayer, you say, God, please give me this or something better, whatever is for my highest good. That way, when you put that at the end, this or something better, whatever is for my highest good, you can say, I want, and be as descriptive and detailed and absolutely laser focused as you want to be, and you will never run the risk of making a bad choice, because then you are saying, God, this or something better. So if what you thought you wanted doesn't come exactly, but you are open to receiving that which is for your highest good, you can never go wrong with your prayer. So after you've written it in detail, and you want to use detail because the mind needs a focal point. It needs something to get excited about, otherwise it's going to go off into negative thinking. So you use your prayer, I want a new red bicycle, and then you get excited about riding that new red bicycle. You start thinking about all of the places that you're going to be going on your bike. Get excited, get delighted, but understand that you've given the final choice up to God so that you get exactly that which will be best for you. Now, after you have your prayer, I want you to either fold it up into a small little square, ball it up, you can even burn it. But after you have your prayer, keep the ashes, keep the little ball, keep the square, go out into your garden or go over to your plant. Dig a hole starting from the outside so you don't hurt the roots. Dig way down and then underneath. And plant your prayer under the flower, the vegetable, whatever it is that you have growing, even a tree. And now, as the plant grows, and as you water it and tend it, and speak lovingly to the plant, you are speaking lovingly to your plant, your prayer, and you're watching your prayer grow into fruition, just as you are watching your plant bloom or become ready for harvest if it's a vegetable. And I guarantee you, none of you are going to want to go out into your garden and dig down in there trying to figure out where you buried that piece of paper so you can get it out and look at it again. It's a symbolic way for us to get into the habit of letting go once we've asked. Ask in as much detail as you need so that you can create a real picture in your mind. Add whatever is for my highest good. and then let it go. Leave that place of asking altogether and step into the place where you are now the receiver of whatever it is that you asked for. Live in that place. Remember, you can ask God to send you the answer over and over again, but you must acknowledge that the answer was already sent, and the problem is on your side, not on God's side. So no going back and saying, God, why won't you answer me? Instead, stand there as a divine child of God, knowing you're magnificent and worthy and that you are dearly loved, and say, God, I know you answered. I didn't get it. Please send the answer again. Even if you have to change it a little bit or change delivery methods. I don't know why I didn't get it, but I'll do better. I'm going to really work on being open. I really want to hear this answer. So please resend it and keep sending it until I have that aha moment and I totally get it. Sometimes you may say, God, I want to drive a new car. And the answer may not be that someone calls you and says, hey, I have a new car that I'd like to give you, or you just won the lottery and here's your new car. It may be that you will be given a job opportunity so that you can buy yourself a new car. So it's not always a one-way street kind of thing. We have to get used to the idea that there can be multiple answers or multiple solutions for our prayer request. And that's why it's so important to stay open. But if you've gone out and you've dug yourself way down next to the plant and then underneath, you will have placed your prayer at the heart of that plant's root system. And as you water and care for that plant, you will be reminded, my prayer has been answered. It's growing and thriving just like this plant. It feels so great to know that my prayers are always answered. And of course, that brings us to the place where we have to say, but what about those times that it feels like there's a big, long delay? Well, check with you first. Probably you're hanging out on 1st and Main and you forgot to go over to 3rd and Main. You didn't get yourself in a place of receptivity, so you didn't hear what was being shared with you, or feel it, or see it, or experience it. That is always the first thing to do, is to check and see, gee, am I really open and receptive, or am I holding on so tightly to this request that it hasn't gone anywhere, and I haven't changed my energetic offering? I'm still in the problem space, the asking space. I never gave myself an opportunity to get over into the receiving space. But once you're in the receiving space, if it feels as though it is taking a long time, you may ask, God, is it me not understanding? Or is this taking a long time because there are a lot of people or pieces that need to come together in order for this to create a perfect whole? And they will answer you. They will show you you're in alignment, or, hey, you are so far out in left field that you're not getting any of our instructions. So if you have said a prayer and you find yourself continuing to pick up that prayer and agonize over it, now you can say, God, please show me signs of alignment. Show me that I'm in alignment with that which I desire so that I can let go of this. I'm having a hard time keeping my mind off the situation. Help me refocus. Show me signs of alignment. Give me some encouragement. Help me stay on track, whatever you want to call it, so that you can take that deep breath, relax, open, become receptive, and just flow along with the process. Whether your prayer can be answered immediately or whether it may take a while, because many people will benefit from your prayer and need to be in the right place. But don't get caught up in, if Sally isn't here, I can't get my prayer answered. No, God will just move through another person, another situation. There are multiple answers, so don't get caught up in it has to be this way or no way. Remember, it's whatever is for your highest good. Obviously, if your prayer is something that can bless many people, the idea would be to gather as many people together as possible to give them the opportunity to be blessed. But your success is not dependent on someone else's actions. It's based solely on you getting into the right headspace with God. Okay, so I'm looking to see, Audrey, if you are here, please raise your hand. I want you to share that lovely story you shared with me yesterday about always getting your prayers answered. If she's not here, I don't see her hand raised. If she's not here, we're going to give her a few more minutes. She's coming back from work and is doing us a big favor to hop on here and share. It is such a lovely, sweet story, and I don't want to tell her story for her because she just says it so beautifully. But it is the difference between when we are taught to pray as little children from someone who really understands prayer, and when we are taught to pray by an organization that may or may not understand prayer. And in my particular case, it was the church. I don't think they really understood prayer. And so I didn't understand prayer. I understood begging, but I didn't understand having a relationship with God. And I'm not faulting them. That's all they knew. We can only share what we know. That's why it's so important to keep learning and growing. So while we're waiting for Audrey, does anyone have a question about prayer, or does anyone have a prayer story, an answered prayer that you'd like to share? Because here's the thing we need to remember. Anytime you win and you share that win with the group, you inspire all of us. Nobody wants to hear a story about the poor, pitiful person that doesn't get anything when they are really wanting to learn a new skill or a new belief system. So if you have answered prayer, if you've got a miracle story that you want to share with us, please do. You don't know who you may be helping, but I guarantee you that you will be helping someone. So anybody that has a prayer story or a miracle, something that just feels really good to your heart that you'd like to share? Okay. I'm going to share with you the difference in my life when I was begging and when I was in a relationship with God. When I believed I had no value, no worth, and that God really had no interest in answering my prayers, my circumstances generally would go from desperation to maybe a lull, maybe, a little bit of take a deep breath, but generally desperation to less desperation, back to more desperation, maybe less desperation. Things never really felt great. I was always on the edge of fear, always wondering when I might fall off the cliff. Now, fast forward to a short time ago, a couple of years ago now, and I now have a relationship with God, and I have now become very accustomed to having conversations, to really trusting and feeling honored and loved. And I now am capable of really honoring and loving God in return. But we came up against this situation based on an investment decision that we made that looked like it was a no-fail. Well, it did fail, or at least it got delayed. And it meant that I would have to change we had to leave our home. We had to change our lifestyle completely. But the biggest benefit that I got out of that was I completely let go of fear. Old me would have said, "Oh, please don't do this to me. Please don't put me in this situation, this challenging situation." New me said, "Okay, I get it. I see the way this is going." And I just throw myself into this completely with total trust and belief that this is exactly what I need for my highest good, and that everyone who is involved will grow and be safe during this challenge. It took about a year, but I was out praying one day, and suddenly I realized I'm no longer afraid. Fear had been my middle name for so long. I grew up in a home that was afraid. I carried that forward into my life as an adult, and fear had colored every decision. But then being given this challenge of not having what I was used to having completely eliminated the fear. Yes, I did, offer the prayer of, God, if there's another way and we don't have to go through the fire, I'd really like to experience it. But going through the fire was just what I needed at that time in order to become a much stronger person, a person who has much more to offer and also recognizes more fully their value. So sometimes those situations that do not appear to be wonderful are exactly the thing that will move you further the fastest. So don't be afraid if it looks like, hey, this could be a challenge. Just trust, ask for signs of alignment, because it can get a little challenging when you're going through a challenge. It can be a little tough to hang on to your faith and your certainty. So ask for signs of alignment so that you know that you've not veered off into any kind of crazy detour. And just watch as you begin to bloom and grow. Now, it doesn't look like Audrey's going to be able to come and share her story with us. She must have gotten held up at work. So I will try to do her story justice. But she said to me, we were talking about what the call was going to be about today, and she said, I always get my prayers answered. I said, really? Because I had never heard a person say it so simply and with so much certainty. She said, oh, yes. Everything that I pray about, I receive. I said, wow. How did you learn to pray with such confidence? She said, my mother taught me when I was a very young child. She taught me that God loves me. She taught me that God hears me, that God answers my prayers, and that all I need to do is trust and believe that the answer is here and it will automatically show up. I'll always be in the right place at the right time to receive the answer. She said, my mother said, Audrey, you say your prayer, you ask God for whatever it is that you want, and then you let it go. You let it go and you just trust that when the time is right, you'll be in the right place and have that prayer answered. But she tells it in a voice of such sincerity and conviction that that's why I wanted her to share her story with us. It's just so beautiful and pure to hear someone say, oh, I always get my prayers answered. Because I know my own prayer journey had been very rocky. I didn't have any experience with getting prayers answered when I began. And so it was so refreshing to talk with someone who with absolute certainty was able to say, I get my prayers answered. And she told me about something that happened just recently for her. She had received a ring from her sister when her sister passed away. And I don't know what the ring looks like, but I think it has quite a few diamonds in it. And she noticed when she was at work that one of the diamonds was missing. She looked down and said, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. This was my sister's ring and I wanted to take such good care of it. But she heard a voice telling her, put your ring in your billfold. So she did, and she just said, God, thank you for bringing that diamond back. And so she gets up the next day and she hears, take the ring out of the billfold. And she does. She goes to work, gets home, realizes she's lost her wallet. She would have lost the ring if the ring was still in that billfold. So she goes over to security at where she works and says, hi, I think before she was even able to get her name out, he hands her, wrapped in white paper, her billfold. Now she had already said, God, please help me find my wallet. If someone needed the money in there, they're free to take it. Just please, can I have all of the identification and the credit cards and those things that are such a pain to replace? Can they please be intact? But if someone needs the money, they may have, they're free to take it. Opens her wallet. All the money is there. Her license is there. All of the credit cards are there. Answered prayer. Goes home. Still hasn't solved the problem of the ring, but is really feeling excited because she was told to take the ring out of her wallet, and so the ring is still at home. She didn't have any feelings of desperation when that wallet went missing that she was going to lose the ring too. It was already safe at home. Then she gets up the next day and is washing her hands in the sink. And as the water runs over the netting, the wire mesh in the sink, it starts sparkling. And she looks down, and there's the diamond that had fallen out of the ring. All of her prayers were answered. She didn't spend a moment in fear. She didn't let guilt get a hold of her and make her feel that she was not worthy. She simply prayed with trust and belief and got ready to receive. So we have a challenge this week, the Why Bother Challenge. If you find yourself saying to yourself, hey, I'm not worth having my prayer answered, then you got to say to yourself, well, why am I bothering asking? I've either got to not pray or I got to get myself into the place where I believe that I can receive answered prayer. Same thing. If you say, well, God, I know you're not going to be able to answer this, don't bother. Either go all in or don't bother. And don't forget, we now have heart prayer gardens. You are going to plant your prayer request at the heart of the plant, way down deep at the heart of that root structure, so that when you're out tending your plants, you will be tending to your prayers, knowing that they are growing just as your plant is growing. And always remember, step over into the place of receivership. Get away from the question, the concern, the problem. Get over into the answer space. All right, guys, that's all for today. Thanks so much for being with me. You were all very shy today, so I hope you enjoyed today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Marcia Martin, the Heart Healer, because what I have found is that when I do the writing, it seems, wow, really interesting. That's getting the channeled information from the guides. But when I go back and look at it again and again and again and again, I will continue to gain new insights. So subscribe to this channel. When you're needing an answer, go back to one of the times when we've been discussing whatever it is that you need help with, and listen with new ears. You may find something that you hadn't heard before. And of course, share this channel with anyone who you think would be interested. And don't forget, we have a Facebook group, Heal Our Hearts. If you're not already a member, please come on over and see if you'd like to join. We welcome everyone who's willing to participate with unconditional love. So until next Wednesday, I'm sending you my love.